This first story took place in the year 1923 here in Israel. That year, BaOmer took place on a Friday, and there was a major simcha. There was such festivity, such joy, and as usual, this year excluded because of Corona, we're not allowed to flock to Meron, whereas the burial grounds of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, this day being the day of the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it's like he said that on the day of his passing we should celebrate it. So generally, this is one of the biggest festivals of the year in Israel. Literally tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of people flock there. But in that year, in 1923, it was a regular time, and so mad amount of people flocked over to Meron, which is across from Tzfat in the north of Israel, to celebrate this major occurrence. And we're still going to, through the course of tonight, try and understand why it's such a special day. And there was singing and there was dancing on this Friday. There was l'chaims and there was joy like you can't imagine. And that joy just compounded as it turned into Kabbalat Shabbat, the welcoming of the Sabbath. And then before you know it, people finished their prayers and they made their ways home to partake of the Shabbos day meal, Friday night meal. And all of a sudden, a giant shriek was heard. It was the sound of a woman screaming like catastrophe. And people flocked out of their homes to see what had happened, and they found out that this woman, she had lost her 3-year-old boy. Without any pre-existing conditions or anything like that, the boy had just fallen dead. Now at the time, this was the British Mandate of Palestine. And as a result, the British had control of the area, and they immediately assumed the worst, that maybe there was a pandemic or an epidemic of some sort. And as a result, that was the only way to explain that a little boy without any pre-existing conditions had fallen dead. So they closed off the entire city of Meron, not allowing anyone in and not allowing anyone out. And from all the joy that they had just been experiencing, turned into a very deep sorrow. And the woman picked up her little boy that she had just lost and wrapped him in a blanket and carried him over to the tomb of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And as she stood there with all the people of the town surrounding her, she spoke and she said, "Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, I came here with my husband 4 years ago. After many years of marriage, we hadn't been meritorious to have children. And I came here beseeching you as a righteous man that you should beseech the Creator on my behalf and help me to be meritorious to have children. And I said that if you would do that and somehow I would be blessed with children, I would be sure that on the 3rd birthday, I would bring my child, my baby boy, here for his first haircut." This is a minhag, a custom in Jewish tradition, that on your 3rd birthday, only at your 3rd birthday, you get a haircut. And so she promised that if you help me to merit to have a child, I'll bring on the 3rd birthday the child here. And she says, indeed, I was blessed. As we said, she said this was 4 years prior, and we said that the story took place in 1923, so that it was in 1919 that she had come there to beseech Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And that year she gave birth, 1920. And now 3 years later, she had brought the boy. And then she said, this is why I'm here. 1923, 3 years later, I was blessed with the boy. And now I'm here for the first haircut. And all of a sudden, this happens to me. This is terrible. Like, why? I can't understand. You give me a miraculous child, a miraculous birth like this. And now the child's dead. And she just can't even contain herself. And everyone in the whole town is just so broken up. And she takes her child into the tomb, into the kever, the grave of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the holy tzaddik, the holy righteous man. and she lays the blanket with the child inside of it down there in the tomb, and with tears flooding down her face and all the faces of everyone around her, she leaves the tomb. And after a few minutes of outside people trying to console her, all of a sudden there's a bit of a silence, and then they hear crying of a baby child from inside the tomb. And everyone can't believe it. She goes inside to find her son completely alive and crying, "Mommy, mommy, I'm hungry. Can I have something to eat?" So this sounds like a ridiculous story. However, as we just said, the story happened in 1923, and there are people alive today in the city of Tzfat that, if they themselves were not there, they know firsthand from their own parents or grandparents that were there on this incredible occurrence. And being that nobody came in and came out, like I said, because Meron was closed down because of the fear of a pandemic or an epidemic, makes it all the more miraculous. So what is Lag BaOmer all about? Lag BaOmer literally means the 33rd day of the Omer. As we said, that the Jewish people are commanded from the second day of Passover to Shavuot to count 49 days. 33rd day of the Omer is just that. It's the 33rd day from Passover, from the second night of Passover. So it's interesting to point out that 49 days, 49 is numerically equivalent to Choleh, which means sick. It's taught that when the Jewish people went into Egypt, they went down to a very, very low level of impurity, what's called the 49th level of impurity. And it took 49 days, this 49 days, 7 weeks times 7 days that they were commanded to count, for them to come out of it and eventually receive the Torah on the 50th day. Now, we said again that during the time of the Romans, the story goes that, and this is recorded in the Talmud, that there were a few rabbis that were speaking. One rabbi spoke up and he said, "Wow, look at all the wonderful innovations that the Romans have successfully made. They've made bathhouses and bridges and aqueducts and all these wonderful things." And another rabbi just remained quiet. And the third rabbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, spoke up and he said, "Yeah, but the only reason they do all that is in order to get more taxes from the Jewish people, in order to make life more difficult for us, and in order to feed their temptations and their lusts that are all selfish and negative." And while Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was just talking with this close group of friends, unfortunately word got out somehow. And the Romans found out about it, and they put a death sentence on Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai fled with his son, Rabbi Elazar, and they sought refuge in a cave. A miracle occurred in that cave, and a carob tree sprouted, as well as a stream flowed right outside of it to provide them with sustenance, food, and water. And this is how they subsisted for many, many years, 13 years plus that they were in that cave. Our sages, the Ben Ish Chai, for one, points out that the word carob in Hebrew, cheruv, is numerically equivalent to gevura, which means judgment, severity. And Meimei Chesed, water, is in Kabbalah usually associated with kindness, which are two contradictory modes. And the Ben Ish Chai points out that in truth, this isn't a happenstance, isn't a coincidence that these are the miracles that occurred, that these two things occurred, these two miracles occurred for Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and his son. In truth, what is the mission of a righteous man in this world is to sweeten all gvurot, to sweeten all severities and judgments that come upon the Jewish people and all people of the world. And no one was more qualified, more successful in this regard than Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And as a result, we see that these two miracles occurred for him because this was his main purpose in life. This was his main focus in life, to sweeten all the judgments that fell on the Jewish people and on the world. Not only that, the day that he passed away, we said, was Lag BaOmer, that's today. And on that day, he revealed some of the deepest secrets that he revealed in his entire life. Some of the deepest secrets we still know about all of Torah was revealed on that day. And a fire illuminated the entire house to the point that those who were not worthy had to leave. Only a few select students were able to stay and bear that fire. So to this day, we celebrate this day by lighting fires and having bonfires and the like. Lag BaOmer, Lag has the same letters as Gal. Gal means, like you see in Psalms, Gal Einai, King David says, reveal to my eyes, open my eyes to see, wonders. Gal meaning reveal. We see when Jacob went and he met Rachel for the first time, she was a shepherd, and there was a giant boulder covering the well, and he asked the other shepherds, hey, like, can I get her something to drink? And they were like, no, we wait until everyone's here and then we do it. And he went out of his own accord and he moved this giant boulder off of the well in order to give to Rachel and all her sheep and her flock water. So in one place we see that God hardened the heart of Pharaoh. There's this idea of having a cold heart, a hardened heart. It means that you're not sensitive to the feelings of others and that there is severity, that there is judgment. What we just said is that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai excelled in removing judgments and removing severity. And so the word that's used in that passage, that Jacob removed the boulder that was covering the well, is vayigal, which means and he revealed the waters so that she could partake of the water. The idea of removing this hardened heart, this cold heartedness, in order to share it so that from having severities, from having judgments, there should be an overflow of kindness and compassion, waters of life that bring a sweetening for all kinds of judgment in the world. And that was what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was mainly involved with, and that's why these two miracles occurred for him, that the carob tree sprouted and that the waters flowed. Now, moving forward, we know that there was his rabbi was Rabbi Akiva. And we spoke about how Rabbi Akiva at a late age became a convert, a righteous convert and a leader of the generation, and he lost 24,000 students during this period of the Omer, until, according to one opinion, they all stopped dying on Lag BaOmer. So it wasn't just the day that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai passed away and he said that you should celebrate this day. It's also a day when this plague ceased to be an issue. So there's definitely a connection. There's something more to be understood with regard to all of this. When Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was in the cave with his son Rabbi Lazar, it is taught that he learned Torah day and night with Eliyahu Navi, with Elijah the prophet. And eventually when he came out with this book known as the Book of the Zohar. The Zohar literally means splendor or light, and it represents the first major recording of mysticism, Kabbalah, and the secrets of the Torah. We know that when Adam was in the world, and even before that, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, and the world was tohu v'vohu v'choshech. There was chaos and darkness, and and a void that covered over the face of the earth, and the Spirit of God hovered, and then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. Now, in that regard, our sages point out that God's had a secret light, an organuz, a hidden light, and he saw that if he just gave it out freely to everyone, it could be abused by the wicked. But he saw that it would be better to save it away for the righteous in the time to come. With this light, Adam was able to see from one side of the world to the other side of the world. But the angels literally thought he was like a god, and they wanted to worship him. Our sages point out that this hidden light, this organuz, is the light of the internal part of Torah, the pnimiut Torah. As it says that, and this is an issue where Christians kind of deviate from Judaism, is that God says, and a new Torah will come out from you. So Christians, for example, took this to mean that you have an Old Testament, and God saying a new Torah will come out of me means that this is the New Testament, that all of a sudden he's abrogated all of the commandments and all of the Torah that was previously there, and he's now made a New Testament, a new Torah, and new commandments for a future people or whatever. There's a problem with this view, in that the Torah says very clearly, you shall not add on or subtract from this Torah. And the Torah is eternal. Truth is eternal. So how do we reconcile? And the answer is that the new Torah represents the very same Torah, the very same commandments, however, a revealing of a deeper dimension of that very self-same Torah. And this is the Torah, this is the hidden light that God concealed for the righteous in the time to come, the Torah of Mashiach, the Torah of Messiah, which is the Kabbalah. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was so influential in that when he came out with the book of the Zohar and publicized this for the first time, these teachings for the first time, it was a taste of the Torah of Messiah. It was a taste of the hidden light that was concealed away on the 6 days of creation for the righteous. And from him, we would see later on in the 1500s with the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, taking that Torah, that teaching, that light, that hidden light, the Kabbalah, to a new level of expounding and interpretation. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself said that with this Torah, with this book, the Jewish people would come out of exile through compassion and through mercy. It's interesting, Rabbi Nachman of Breslev starts out, his main work is known as the Likutei Moharan. And in Likutei Moharan, he starts out with a discussion of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And there, he records a discussion between the sages and how some of the rabbis and sages said how unfortunate that one day the Jews will fall so deep into exile that the Torah will be forgotten and will be lost. There will be such a great fixation on materialism, on technology, on temptation and lust and cravings, and all these things will be so widespread that the Torah will be lost. And if the Torah is lost, God said at the very beginning, so long as the Jewish people keep the Torah, I'll continue to keep creation alive. As soon as there's no Torah, then there's no longer a purpose. The whole world will go to ruin. So they said, woe unto us that unfortunately this is probably going to happen. And it's recorded there in the oral tradition that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, basically over my dead body, no, I'll be a guarantor. I'll make sure that this isn't ever going to happen, that it will never be lost. And he brought a verse from the Torah to validate this, to back this up. Lo tishachach mipi zaro. That's in Deuteronomy. and will not be forgotten from the mouths of his offspring, of the Israel. Lo tishachach mipi zal'o. And Rabbi Nachman points out that the last letters of this verse make up the name Yochai. It will not be forgotten from the offspring. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai literally means Shimon, the son of Yochai. He says, so you see very clearly in the Torah that this will not be forgotten. Why will it not be forgotten? Because of the offspring. Take the last letters of Yochai. Who's that? That's me. I'm making a guarantee. I'm making a guarantee that this will never be lost. How? By virtue of this Torah, this new teaching that I'll bring forth, the Zohar, with which they will come out of exile in compassion and in mercy. So the Zohar was the first of the spreading of the deep secrets of Kabbalah, and it was taken to another level later on with the Arizal in the 1500s, and even to an even greater level in the 1700s with the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov. And each and every subsequent generation has taken these teachings to an even greater and greater and greater level, to the point where even non-Jews to this day have tasted of this Torah. You find, unfortunately, non-kosher avenues, not the most authentic avenues too, where people are spreading this information. For example, Kabbalah Center and Madonna and Ashton Kutcher are known to have studied Kabbalah. Obviously, it's not the same Kabbalah as it should be, not the most authentic version, but nevertheless, it's this idea that this stuff has spread to a very, very remote areas of the world, even the lowliest of places. Could say Hollywood, maybe. So this is kind of some of the ideas behind the Zohar and Kabbalah. For a time of greater darkness, God concealed a greater light to help us through that time. Before he gave us a sickness, he gave us the cure. Before there was the corona, the epidemic, the sickness, there was the remedy, the vaccine that God already had. What was that? For the time of the great darkness that we're in, the time of great sickness, so to speak, spiritually that we're in, is this teaching of the inner part of Torah. And only with it do we have the mechanism and the means to overcome the great, great difficulties we face in our times spiritually. In our times, you walk around outside and you look up and you see billboards of the most inappropriate nature. You open magazines, you see inappropriate stuff. You look at commercials on TV, you see inappropriate stuff. You watch movies and television shows, you see inappropriate stuff. Everywhere you look, you're inundated with the major temptations that our sages always warned us to be wary of. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Mainly, you could say sex, money, and food. You go down your Instagram page, chances are that's the main things you'll see. People that are, check out my new shoes, check out my new car, check out, the vacation I'm on Bora Bora, check out, beach bod. All these things that are so prevalent and you're getting bombarded with every day. The only means that we have to combat that and still stay pure, connected, and true is really the Kabbalah. And in the Kabbalah, we learn that you are where your mind is. So that means, how do you protect yourself when your mind is day in and day out filled with such propaganda and such nonsense, such things that are so bad for your soul? Whether you know it or not, or want to admit it or not even, there are wealthy, powerful individuals that understand that he who controls the masses controls the world. And so they spend a great deal of money and they use a lot of their leverage to impact news, media, social media, that all of a sudden you walk outside, You'll be talking to your friend about a certain product, and next thing you know, you open up your Facebook, and strangely enough, they're advertising that product. They, in a sense, we're like in the matrix, that we're like plugged in, and they want to keep us plugged in. They want to keep us enslaved because they know that he who controls the mind controls everything about you. Because your mind is where you are, and so therefore I want to control your mind so that I can control where you are. So there's a lot of things going on in the world today. A lot of manipulation and misinformation to keep us, so to speak, stuck down. And the only way to, so to speak, free our mind is through these teachings of the Zohar, these teachings of the Kabbalah and Chassidut that help us to free our minds through meditation, through understanding deeper psychological mechanisms that affect us, and how to free ourselves from the grasp of this time of darkness, this time we find ourselves in. And more so, each and every generation, while our enemies, so to speak, while the darkness tries to get stronger, the light is also spreading forth on a much greater and greater level. Technology can be a gift or a curse. Again, it depends whose hands it's in. But even in the Zohar, there was this prediction in Parshas Noah, in the book of, in the Torah, in the portion of Noah, it speaks about how the great waters in the year 500 or something of Noah's life, the waters came forth from below and above, and the Zohar makes a prophecy and a prediction. This is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's Zohar that we're talking about, that in this a certain year, and this year that's spoken about there corresponds with roughly the year 1840, 1800, 1840. The waters from below and the waters from above will burst forth. What are these waters? The waters from below representing the wisdom of this world of science and technology, and the waters from above being the wisdom of these secrets of Torah, the Kabbalah and Chassidut. This is what the Zohar predicted in the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And indeed, it was around that time, 1840, that we saw the Industrial Revolution. And ever since then, technology has been going out to a much greater and greater extent, exponentially increasing each and every year. But at the same time, that was when we saw the secrets of Torah becoming more and more profoundly expounded upon and publicized on a much wider scope. So we see that there is this dual interaction occurring, that on the one hand, each and every year there's a new iPhone that's trying to, and you feel like you're behind as long as you don't have the newest iPhone. And then, like we said, corporations know that they should spend money on these algorithms and everything, that all of a sudden you go down your Facebook page or your Instagram page and you're getting these ads of the newest things that you need to be buying, you should be buying. Don't miss out, don't be stuck behind, be with the times, be with the trends. And so you feel like you have to keep up, otherwise you're behind. So on the one hand, we're super material, but on the other hand, at the same time, there's such a widespread and an exponential increase in the secrets of this world, of the wisdom of the Torah that's coming out. And the idea is that eventually the waters from below and the waters from above should meet. There's no doubt that if something is true, if any wisdom is true, then science and technology can never and should never be able to prove it false. And that means that eventually we'll come to realize that science and technology is not against God's wisdom and the wisdom of Torah. If anything, it's a supplement to it. If anything, it helps us understand it to a greater level. So for example, the Lubavitcher Rebbe once spoke about decades ago how in a home you have a computer and you have a printer and you have lamps and you have lights and you have televisions and you have fridges. And he said, it's amazing that if you ripped up the carpet and you looked, you would find all these things that seem all disconnected and separate. Underneath, they're all actually connected. These wires all come together at some point or another into the same power source. So he said it's like a beautiful mashal, a beautiful example of the understanding that while we live in a world where everything is so disconnected, at the same time, underneath it all, everything is one, everything is connected. There's a God. And then you could say that this idea gets even more profoundly impactful when you realize that we moved on to the level of wireless technology, that we understand already that you don't need to rip up the carpet, you don't need to see wires, and you can still already contemplate and understand that things are connected. And then it gets to an even, in a sense, higher level nowadays with Bluetooth and with everything like that, that things can be worlds apart and still be very connected. And so if we can understand that on a technological level, it helps us to understand God in a higher level as well. It's really profound, actually. Now with Corona, you think, oh my gosh, we're so disconnected. We're all in lockdown and we can't talk. But the truth is, no. With our technology, in a way, we can all be completely connected while not actually being next to each other or touching each other or anything like that. It's a wondrous thing. We are able to, through a beautiful mashal, a beautiful example, a metaphor, understand very clearly that just because even the lowest of things, even the most disconnected of things, are actually always able to be connected. Everything is always and has always been one and can always be one. And this was only available by virtue of the Torah. More so, at this point, a lot of religions have started, and a lot of people around the world have started looking into the Bible and coming to understand the wisdom and the depth of the Bible. But even so, why should they learn from a rabbi? Why should they learn Torah from Jews? They think to themselves, they have their pastors or their priests or whatever that also have been learned in this kind of information. But all of a sudden, with the internal aspect of Torah, one, let's say they don't understand Hebrew, that's already, you can show them how there's a complete loss in translation as long as you don't understand Hebrew. But let's say they do understand Hebrew. There's a whole dimension that even if you understand Hebrew, if you don't have the oral tradition that's been passed down from generation to generation, if you don't understand the mystical dimension, we can teach you a whole lot of lessons that will blow your mind. And that's exactly what Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai innovated. And beyond that, our generation has become very lost. A lot of Jews don't know, why should I be a Jew? There's wisdom in Buddhism and Hinduism and there's psychedelics and there's all these other crazy things that out there that I can subscribe to. The truth is, if you look into the Kabbalah, it destroys every other wisdom in the world. It really does. It contains it and it surpasses it. You can spend your life looking into it and it's going down the rabbit hole ad infinitum. And so we see more than ever, and I'm an example of this, that even in a time of ours, when people are so lost, this is the only thing that has the power to bring back. Indeed, it brought me back. So I know very clearly, if it wasn't for Kabbalah, I wouldn't be back. So this is just a little bit of why today is so special. So guys, thoughts or questions? What do you guys think?